Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to give you a quick overview of what you're about to see. The tools needed, the optional tools needed, hardware needed, and lumber needed, okay? So the tools you're gonna need: circular saw, impact drill, T25 bit, 1/8 drill bit for pilot hose, 5/16 drill bit for carriage boats, a wrench and a 1/2 inch socket, hammer, speed square, pencil, pliers. Optional tools, highly recommend these: miter saw, oscillator tool for sanding, a paintbrush and a roller if you decide to paint it. Hardware you're going to need: 2.5 inch exterior screws, 4 inch exterior screws, 3.5 inch by 5/16 exterior galvanized carriage boats, 5/16 exterior hex nuts, 3/8 flat washers. Lumber you're going to need: 6 2x8x8s, 6 2x6x8s, 3 2x4x8s. Again, optional material: sandpaper, miter saw, exterior wood glue, and paint. Let's get at it. For the tools, you'll need a nice speed square, a sharp pencil, a set of pliers for any staples, a nice box knife, a big boy hammer. I would stay away from anything less than 20 ounces. This is a Milwaukee 20-ounce hammer, and it is badass. Tape measure, circular saw, impact drill, regular drill. These are all the bits that you should need. This is a 1/8 inch drill bit. I pre-drill everything. It's 5/16 for your carriage boat, and a T25 bit for all of your screws. I would stay away from Phillips heads. Only get these star bits. They're so much easier to work with. They rarely strip. Also, get you a really nice set of safety goggles. These aren't bad. They still fog up. They all fog up, but you do not want sawdust in your eyes. Now onto the hardware. You're going to need 2.5 inch exterior screws. You'll need 4 inch exterior screws for the legs. These are the carriage boats that I use. They're 5/16 by 3.5 inch. I would recommend not to go any longer than 4 inch or any shorter than 3.5 inch. Get 3.5 inch. If you go 4 inch, you're going to have some sticking out of the washer and the hex nut. You may have to cut it off. You may hit it with your leg one day. Right now, they're really clean. I'll show you. I really like to use 3.5 inches because once you get both washers and the hex nut on, barely any of it sticks out. If you get 4 inches or longer, it's going to stick out a little bit. 5 inches will stick out even more. You may hit it with your leg or knee. You may have to cut them off. So 3.5 inches works really well if you're using any 2x lumber. 2x lumber is actually 1.5 inches. So this is 3 inches. Does that make sense? 3.5 inch carriage bolts. Okay, for the hex nuts, I use 5/16 galvanized for exterior purposes. For the washers, you're going to need 3/8 so that they fit around this head. Let me show you here. See how they're flat? A 1/2 inch socket and wrench for the hex nut. Now on to the optional tools. You don't have to have a miter saw, but I highly recommend that you use one for precise miter and bevel cuts. Everything on this table is 28 degrees, and this makes it really simple. All you got to do is turn this lever, lift this knob, turn it to 28 degrees for your miter cuts, for your legs and your seat brace. And then to get the 28 degree bevels, this has a lever back here. You just pull it, and this will move to 28 degrees. It also has a really cool laser. I like to sand everything to keep it clean and to make it less dangerous and pointy. I use the oscillator for this. Yeah, you can get a sander, but this is really easy to use, easy to handle, and it works really well because of these points here. You can get into tighter places. I also glue everything together. This is the glue that I use. You don't have to glue it. I do. Valspar Honey Gold exterior is what I used. A gallon will do about 3 tables completely. A pan in a roller. I like to use this size roller here because it's about the width of a 2x6. Look, if you don't have the option of an oscillator or a sander, but you're still trying to hustle and grind, just get you a scrap 2x4 block, wrap your sandpaper around it real nice, and it'll work fine, you know. Save yourself a little bit of money. I get it, you're trying to hustle, right? We'll go over it really quick. Okay, everybody, so after I cut all the boards, I sand all the boards, and then I stain the boards, I begin putting the table together. The very first step is laying out the tabletop. I take these 2x8 by 8 foot boards that I cut, and I lay them on the ground, all four next to each other with screws in between them for spacing. 16 inches from the edge, and then 48 inches. I put this bracing dead center, and then 16 inches from the edge. After I make those marks, I take my speed square or tape measure and I mark 1.5 inches from the edge. So this bracing from long end to long end is 27 inches. The tabletop is 30 inches. Minus 1.5 inches, minus 1.5 inches, get you 27 inches on the dot. So your bracing should line up with these lines as well as your leg once you put them on, but that's later. After making my marks, I begin to install the 3 27-inch pieces. Also, quick note, a part of step 1 is building your seats as well. As you're building your tabletop bracing, you can go on ahead and put your 10 3/4 bracing on as well. Now, these won't be attached to the table. That's one of the last steps, but go on ahead and build your seat bracing. It's really simple. So for the tabletop, it was 16 inches from the edge. On your seating, it's just going to be 8 inches from the edge, and then one again here dead center. You can see my dead center mark. You can see my 8-inch mark. So again, 8 inches from the edge, one dead center. For the tabletop, 16 inches from the edge, one dead center. Here's my screw pattern for the seat bracing and the tabletop bracing. I put 4 in each leg. As I'm mounting it, I put the carriage bolts in last. Step 2 is the legs and the seat bracing. So I build these things by myself. What I found easiest to do is build the legs and the seat bracing together, separate, and then install it as one piece onto the tabletop. I start by making a 10-inch mark from the bottom of the leg to the start of the seat bracing. Make a 10-inch mark on both sides, and then this is really, really important. You take the long end of the seat bracing and you're going to make a mark at 16.5 inches. I'll show you what that looks like on the other side real fast. Hook your tape measure to the edge of the seat bracing and you'll make a mark at 16.5 inches. That is exactly where your legs are going to line up when you install it. You'll have your 16.5 inch mark so you know where the edge will be, and you'll also have your 10-inch mark. You'll line it up and put 4 screws in from this side so you don't see them from this side. Step 3 is adding this 36 1/8 bracing here. It may push the legs out a little bit as you install it. That's totally fine. You want it to be tight. I add glue to both ends here and there. I always pre-drill on this bracing because this spot right here is really, really notorious for splitting if you don't pre-drill. So I pre-drill and install. Step 4, we flip the table back over. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Hang on. Okay, we flip the table back over and we already have our seats built and we install them. I bring the seats to the edge of the seat bracing. This gap here is going to be about 1 inch wide on both ends. I pre-drill and go in. These are 1 inch and 4 inches from the edge. I just take my speed square or tape measure and make the marks so they look even, right? Now the very last thing after we've got it all put together is my carriage bolts. You want to get your speed square and your pencil line it up with that 16.5-inch mark. Make a mark at 1.5 inches. Pull your speed square over and go 1.5 inches down. It's the same thing on the bottom. You're going to find the edge, make a mark at 1.5 inches, go 1.5 inches up. And I do that on all 4 legs. Then I drill it. Then I put the carriage bolts through. You may need a hammer at this point to knock these through. I really like to get a hammer and a scrap piece of wood to put in between the hammer and the carriage bolt so you don't dent these up. You're going to have to use some force to get them through. You're also going to need that box knife I showed you earlier to kind of cut out and trim this hole when the carriage bolt comes through. A lot of wood flakes are still going to be on it. I like to clean it up with my knife. Kind of gives the hex nut and the washer a hard time gripping onto the screw. And then you just take that 1/2-inch socket, get her tight, and boom, you have a beautiful honey gold 8-foot picnic table. Check out my chickens over there in the native grass. They love it. So now let's go through some prices. Today is May 23rd, 2025, and for a 2x8x8, I pay $9.50. For a 2x6x8, I pay $8.50. 2x4x8, $6. The carriage boats, $1.05 a piece. For the hex nuts, 22 cents. For the washers, I pay 24 cents a piece. For the 2.5-inch exterior screws, 5 cents. For the 4-inch exterior screws, I pay 19 cents. For the wood glue, it cost me about $1, $1.50. Sandpaper cost me about $3 a table. 1 gallon of paint will do 3 tables, so it cost $16 a table to paint. Bringing the grand total to build a honey gold 8-foot picnic table to $168.51. Hope I said it. That's with 115 2.5-inch screws, 12 4-inch screws, 16 washers, 8 hex nuts, 8 carriage bolts, 3 2x4s, 6 2x6s, 6 2x8s. It's a lot of information. I hope someone uses this to build a table like the one that I've built. Have a nice day. Have a great weekend. I've got to go build some stuff and do some research on the market.